Why do I read?
I live in two worlds. One is a world of books.
For me, it's books, books, books.
The mind needs books like a sword needs a whetstone.
I guess people like to read about the things that they want most and experience least.
Books feed me.
Once upon a time.
I read it in a book once.
Is this a kissing book?
I don't care. I'm not ashamed of my book.
It's not right for a woman to read. Soon she starts getting ideas and thinking.
I checked that weeks ago, forbidden like reading.
You have never interested me more.
I have many leather-bound books, and my apartment smells of rich mahogany.
Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think.
I love that book.
I hated that book.
How can you read this? There's no pictures.
Don't read this book.
Those books are good. This might be the best book I've ever read.
I'm gonna go read.
Go ahead, read.
Why do I read?
I read because this world is dotted after me.
Hello!
Hello!
Hello, we did it!
We did it. Oh my gosh. We're here. Oh my gosh, look at my hat.
Reading is sexy. Ooh, I love that.
Oh, thanks.
That is fun. That is fun.
It was a free item. I got it.
What?
Yes. I've been like a member of Book of the Month, like the subscription box for so long that it's called a BFF, Book of the Month BFF, and if you buy like 12 of their books or read 12 of their books and hit your goals, you get a free present every year, and this was
Hashtag goals. That is so cute. I'm jealous. Low key. Oh man, even though we had like two little hiccups like signing on, like this is definitely the quickest we've like hopped on.
Right?
We're getting better. We're getting better. And I was like all excited because I got brand new like high speed internet, and then I went to log on. I was like, no internet. I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Yeah, everything Tiffany has is dinosaur technology because she hates change.
It is not. It is not. I just got high speed. I got high speed internet specifically to make this easier.
Well, I know, but that's what I
other day.
That's what I mean. Like, you had dinosaur internet.
Yeah, I did. I had CenturyLink for 11 years.
Who was that?
Yeah, exactly. He was terrible. And they were like, can you please stay with, like, you've been our customer for 11 years. I'm like, yep, and now it's time for us to break up. Sorry.
Yeah, because I have to use the internet now.
Like, I'm like, I have a podcast now, and this is not going to cut it.
Did you tell them
and
that?
Yeah, and he was like, oh, well, how much do you need? We can, like, up your speed or whatever. And I told him how much, and he's like, oh. I'm like, yeah, I know. I was like
a regular amount.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't have it. Like, I checked on your website. Like, I need this much speed. And they're like, sorry, your address can't handle it.
Like, oh, well, and you know what? You live in the middle of a city.
I know. Well,
like,
it's
there's no
reason. It's dial up, not dial up. It's, what is it? Like a phone line internet versus like a cable internet.
Okay,
and
we're
like
talking about internet.
Okay.
Let's talk about the book.
Welcome, Bookmates. Hi.
Welcome. Hi.
Welcome. Did everybody read this doozy of a book? Wow.
Yes.
We got a show for you.
We're reading the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle this month. It is September, isn't it? Is it September?
It's September.
It's a month, and we're reading this.
Also, before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to one of my favorite bookstores here locally that I picked up my physical copy of this book at. It's called the Central Book Exchange. So if you live in the Salt Lake City Valley or in the Sugar House area, you should definitely go check them out because they have an amazing selection and great deals, and you can rehome your books with them. And you can get points to use in the store, which is what I did. This is not a paid ad. I just want to shout them out because they're amazing. And everybody who's there, who works there is delightful. So I just wanted to give them a little shout out for hooking me up with my physical copy of this book. So shall we dive in to this?
Let's dive in.
Okay, spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler alert. We are going to talk about all of the things of this book, every nook, cranny, plot twist, plot device, twists, turns, all of the things. So,
and this book is a whodunit, so big spoiler alert, okay?
Huge spoilers.
If you want to read this book before you have all the answers to what happens, don't listen to this podcast, because we are just about to just talk about all the tea.
Yep. Hit pause, go read it, come back, and then we'll
and
dive,
it's also very
dive.
possible that if you did not read it, you're going to be really lost.
Yeah.
Oh, my dog just flipped out. You're going to be really lost just because it's full of characters and names and places and timelines, and you might be a little bit lost when we're talking about it. There's no possible way that we could explain to you everything that happens in this book.
That's very true. It's not like other episodes where you can glean enough of it to keep listening. Like, you'll just, there'd be no point. We might as well be speaking a different language.
Yeah. Listen to our podcast, though. If you want to just listen to a spoiler episode, maybe pick a different episode and come back to this one later.
Boom.
Or just keep listening and be lost, because we were lost through most of this book anyway. So,
all right.
All right.
1, 2, 3. Here we go. Did you like it? Did you like the book?
Yes. Yes.
Question mark?
Yes, kind of. I liked it. And there's some reasons why I had problems with this book, and we'll get into that later. But in general, I thought this book was a fun time. It was a good read. I enjoyed it a lot. I did guess the ending pretty early, which is okay, because I didn't really know that I did, because there's so many possibilities. But I did guess it. How about you?
I loved it. I really enjoyed reading it. It was a fun time. It was one of the most unique books I've read. I also did guess most of it. Like, there was a couple things I was like, there was a couple things I was like, oh, that was one element I didn't really think of, but I did guess most of the things.
Oh, cool. Let's talk about it.
All right.
So, I don't even know how we're going to do this. Like, I don't even know how we're going to start.
It's so hard.
So much, and it's so hectic.
I know.
Let's just start with the jacket. I was so grateful that there is, at the front of this book, before you even start it, there is an invitation list of all the people.
That was super helpful.
Yeah, that were brought into the house for this party, this masquerade that they're throwing. And I found myself, especially for the first half of the book, constantly going back and checking who people were.
Me too.
And I was very grateful that that was in there. And I also liked the little map in the front of Blackheath.
Yeah, I loved it.
The place that we're at is Blackheath. Tiffany, do you want to give just like a short little synopsis about what this book's about?
All right, little quick synopsis. We have a Downton Abbey-esque style manor house. It's set, you assume it's kind of set in England, and there is a lot of players. All these guests have been invited to a ball to welcome back Evelyn Hardcastle, because she's been in Paris for the last 19 years and she's returning home. The family, though, the Hardcastle family, has a dark history there. And the family actually abandoned the home when their child, Thomas, 7-year-old Thomas, was murdered there at the lake, and it really tore the family apart. Evelyn was sent away to live in Paris because her parents blame her for the death, because as a 10-year-old, she was in charge of the children that day, but she wanted to ride. So she kind of set up a treasure hunt for the kids to do so she could go off and do her own thing, and her brother got murdered when that happened. So she's always been blamed for the death of her brother. Her parents shipped her off, and now, for reasons that we'll discover as the book goes on, everybody has come back together at the house, And just like 19 years ago, a masquerade was also happening then. So all of the same guests have been invited back to the house. Again, all the people that were there 19 years ago when this originally happened. So everybody's been brought back together 19 years later.
To welcome home Evelyn from Paris. What a weird way to do it, by the way.
Welcome home. And like it seems like it was very spur of the moment too, because the house is in complete and utter disarray because it's been abandoned for the last 19 years. So they're barely making it habitable for all their guests to stay in. And so now that we're here in this manor, everybody's gathered back together for reasons also unknown. We're in a Groundhog Day loop because at the end of this night, Evelyn Hardcastle will be murdered at precisely 11 p.m. And a single guest has 8 days of living the same day over and over again through the eyes of a different guest in the house to try and solve the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle. So it kind of has a Groundhog Day element to it, but you wake up in a different host every day, which means this person has like a different set of memories that he's kind of trying to sift through. Like his first host, he doesn't really have any memories. It's just like blank slate. And he's like, where am I? How did I get here? And then he's kind of learning as he goes. And then as he goes through host to host, he's starting to...
Well, and I love that. That was one thing I really liked about the book, because each day, Aiden is the main character's name. He is inside of a different guest of this party. And each host, he remembers what happens the previous day, but each host is an actual person. So his mind is in that person, but the host has its own personality because it's a real person. So every time he's in a different host, his personality is affected. Things that host would do, he starts to do or think. So it's kind of this
nature versus nurture takeover, because it's like having two people in one thing. But like Aiden himself doesn't have any memories of who he is, and at the beginning he doesn't even remember that his name is Aiden. He doesn't remember anything about his life, how he got here, there's zero context that he has. And then and
later on we also learn that every single person at the party also comes back every day, but their memories are wiped.
Yeah, he's the only
Each
one.
night, he's the only one that can remember what happened the previous day.
But only for 8 days, because he is greeted soon into this by a figure in a plague doctor costume, and he's basically like kind of the boss of this mysterious time loop, and kind of lays some ground rules out for him. And basically, if he doesn't solve the murder in these 8 days that he has with 8 different hosts, all the memories get set and the cycle starts all over again, and he'll wake back up in the first host. So it gets complicated real quick.
And we also find out that in this book, that loop has already happened thousands of times. They have been stuck. And it's not just Aiden that has to try and figure out. It can be anybody that can guess who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. Who did it? We don't know.
We also learn that there are also 2 other people like him in the house. We don't know who at first, but they're also trying to guess, but only one of them is allowed to escape Blackheath Manor. So now there's like a sense of competition.
Oh, it's big competition, because everybody, they know they've been there at this point. They know they've been there forever, and they're all trying to get out. And whoever guesses... Oh, and here was an interesting tidbit that you really don't find out till the end of the book, that even the people that are orchestrating this, even the plague doctor, doesn't know who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. So they're basically saying, here, you guys figure it out and tell us. Like, this is a mystery to everybody. We don't know. And the plague doctor can navigate throughout Blackheath every single day. He can go wherever he likes, but that doesn't mean that he has the answer either.
But he also remembers the loop. Like for him, it's like showing up to a day at work. Like he's in charge of this place. And shoot, I just lost the thought that I had. It'll circle back.
I'm sure there's so many things. Okay. One thing that really annoyed me about this book was that I thought, for as intricate and how many characters there are and how intricate the story was written, so many of the characters' names sound the same.
Oh, really?
Which drove me absolutely insane. Derby, Daniel, Davies, Donald, Dance, Ravencourt, Rashton. Like, I was like, fuck. Like, which one is this?
I
it really
speak British,
took me
so.
a while. It really took me a while because it's like, oh, Donald Davies and Dance and Daniel and Derby and da 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 da. And I was like, geez, he could have thrown in a Roger or a Reginald or something. Shit.
Oh, that's so funny.
I was like, damn. Like, and then I remember at one point it was like, they kept talking about Daniel, and at the time he was Donald Davies, and I was like, who the fuck, which one am I in? Like, it just confused me a little bit, and that's fine, you know, the author, you know, knows what he's doing, but there were a couple moments where I was like, too many D's, Stuart.
That's fair. I will say that this is actually like one of the things that I loved most about it is that you really do have to pay attention. Like, you can't skim read it. Every sentence means something. And so you really have to be like on top of it while you're reading this. This isn't just like a pick up and read for a couple pages and pick it up and down. Like, you really gotta, if you aren't paying attention, you're just going to get so lost so quickly. But I actually loved that about it.
One thing I really loved about that was when you start out day one as Dr. Sebastian Bell, who is a kind of a crooked doctor. He sells
drugs.
Laudanum, which is basically heroin, to people, which was a common practice back then. Laudanum was misused a lot back in the 1800s, so it's not too odd. It's not like it is now, where like, you're going to jail, mister, for, I mean, you know, it was like, oh, do you have any laudanum? And, oh, sure. For what? For my nerves. I need some heroin. You know? And they just drank it. Well. They just drank it right out of the bottle. But I mean, isn't that crazy? Or they would put their finger in it and, you know.
Yeah.
But so he's like kind of a crooked doctor, and he doesn't know anything. Aiden is in Dr. Bell, and he doesn't know anything. So all that confusion that he's feeling is a really great tool for you, because you're automatically going to be confused at first, but you're figuring out and learning about all the characters along with the character. So It's not as overwhelming as you'd think it would be.
Right, because as he's learning, we're learning, and then we pick up the pieces the same way that he's starting to pick up the pieces. And then as he goes from host to host, he's able to retain the day's memory before, but then like little bits and pieces are kind of starting to come through. Like, he kind of starts to hear his own inner voice in the head of the host. And the farther along through the host that he gets, the harder it is for him to differentiate between himself and then completely losing himself to the hosts, which is super interesting, that I thought, and how different each one was. And I will say that I had read a few things, not during, but like after, and when we started talking about it, that was our book choice. people on TikTok and Instagram all kind of commented and said that they DNF'd this book because it was boring.
No,
and I do not understand.
Surprise me. It doesn't surprise me though that there are people that DNF'd it, because it is.
Yeah, you either love it or you. I loved it, but I did not find this slow or boring at all. I felt I was captivated. It had my full attention, and it switched POVs a lot. Like, I was captivated for every page. Like, for me, there was no lull, but I also love like a slow burn build, and I also love the Britishy Downton Abbey type of thing where a lot of people find that boring. So like, I do understand that it's not everybody's cup of tea, but for me, I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm eating this fucking up.
I didn't write a lot of, I wrote a lot of personal notes trying to find out the mystery, but I didn't find a lot of, like quotes, or there wasn't really anything that was like, ooh, I like that line. Like, I didn't have any moments like that really, when I was reading this book, but I did devour it pretty quickly. I couldn't put it down. After I started it, I wanted to know what happened, just like in any mystery I read. I'm like, too. What's going on? Who is it?
Yeah, I'm like, this is so. And just when I thought I had my finger on the pulse, then like the plague doctor comes, and then the footman is introduced, which is like this mysterious villain who's always trying to kill him. And he's kind of, the footman has figured out which host he's in. So not only does he have like limited time to try to figure out this murder, but now there's this mysterious footman who's trying to murder him, and if that host gets murdered by the footman, he's gonna pop into the next host, and he loses out on that.
Also, what's the point of that? Like, why have the footman? I mean, okay,
well,
so
we learn at the end.
Yeah,
though,
here's the thing about this, guys. Okay, this is like hell.
Yeah,
this is a hell of some kind for bad people. And they're all put into this scenario, this loop, to basically atone for what they did in their life that was bad.
But we don't know that until quite later.
No, yeah, you don't know that till the end. But Aiden is the only one who was there voluntarily. Mm-hmm. So everyone else, because of their life's deeds, their memories get wiped at the end of each day. So it's even harder for them to solve the mystery. But Aiden is the only
borderline impossible.
Yeah, impossible. Aiden is the only one that gets to hold on to his memories through the whole 8 days and try and figure it out. Because he chose to be there. Because he wanted to torture Anna.
Yeah, which Anna is another player who is stuck in the time loop, and for after a while,
but he can't remember that he wants to torture her.
No,
because he can't remember anything from his previous life.
But the thing is, and we find out in the end that the reason that he doesn't remember anymore is because he's been there for so long, doing that for so long, that it just, his reasons for being there slowly faded away. And it now is to the point where he doesn't remember that he hates Anna. And when he wakes up as
so pointless.
When he wakes up as Belle, he actually thinks he's trying to help her. And then they form an alliance, and they're trying to help each other get out.
His first word when he wakes up the first day, he's screaming Anna's name. Anna! And he's like, who's Anna? And then he takes several days figuring out who Anna is.
Yeah, and it's only when the plague doctor eventually tells him, even though he's not supposed to, but he's like, you're so close to solving this. Like, you should just, like, she's gonna betray you, blah, blah, blah. But that's getting ahead. Well,
yeah, that is getting ahead.
Okay,
how about the chess pieces? So, So, like, everybody's giving out these chess pieces the whole time, and I was immediately thinking about the Count of Monte Cristo. And I was like, every 5 seconds, I was like, even at the beginning, Dr. Sebastian Bell opens his chest, and somebody stole all his laudanum, shocker. And there's a chess piece in there, and I was like, oh, kings to you, Fernand.
Fernand.
And then every time somebody hands a chess piece, I was like, oh, kings to you.
Kings to you. I did write down in my theory section that I figured out pretty early. I'm like, I think that the chess piece is his way of letting him know who he is, because it's always a bishop that's left behind, and his last name is Bishop, Aiden Bishop.
Oh, yeah. So it's kind of like,
because he knows that if he doesn't,
that's his that's
his little talisman. Because he knows that if he doesn't solve the loop, he's gonna need something to jump off on the next cycle. And they're kind of, when the cycle starts over, the last thing that they're thinking about is like kind of the kernel that they take into the next loop to give him kind of a jumping off point. And it's different every time. And this time it happened to be Anna. And then the chess piece trying to give him a clue as to who he... And Anna's name is carved into the chess piece as well, so...
But, like, the whole idea of this party, like, even writing that on the invitations about Charlie Carver, like, murdering Thomas Hardcastle, in a society setting in a time where people avoid scandal at all costs is absolutely ludicrous. Like, that would not have happened back then. Like, that was my first thought, was like, okay, they would not have done that. That because back then, you avoided scandal at all costs. Talking about it, anything. So, like, the whole idea of having this, like, party to welcome Evelyn home in the place her brother was murdered is kind of insane to me. Which the mother in this, Henrietta,
Helena.
Helena, whatever. Henrietta, Helena. Like, she's kind of loopy, I guess. You don't know, because she is literally nowhere to be seen the entire book. People just say that she randomly screams and runs and is, like, crazy. But I pretty much knew. I don't know about you, but I knew from the beginning. I was like, okay, she's dead. She's not showing up to any. She's not showing up to any of her appointments. That's the first, like, sign. Like, she
and no one's seen her.
Yeah, no, nobody's seen her.
And then her room was broken into, and she was gone. Things were, missing from her room. Yeah, I figured that early on, and then apparently, like, she'd never gotten over the death of her child, and then in the last year, she started acting even more unstable. And Evelyn says that the party was a way to punish her for...
I guess. I mean...
To embarrass her, because then we also learned that she's been bartered off to Lord Ravencourt.
Lord Ravencourt, Fat Man Ravencourt.
Fat Man Ravencourt.
I had all these nicknames for the characters, like, Dr. Heroin was my nickname for Sebastian Bell. The Burnt Butler was Roger Collins. Playboy Donald Davies. Donald Davies. And Jim Rushton, the policeman. Fat Man Ravencourt. Old Man Dance. Who else is there? Who is Gold? I will say that, like, from the very beginning, I thought that the last day he was not going to be Gold. I was like, okay, something's weird about this. Like, I think in the last day he's not going to be in Gold's body. That maybe because he didn't know for sure that he was. Like, he was just told that by someone. And I was like, maybe the last day he's not Gold. I thought that would kind of be a twist, and it ended up not being a twist. And that's one thing about this book. Like, you're constantly, it's just a labyrinth of possibilities.
It really is.
Your brain just starts, like, creating places for the mystery
I was like
to go.
Charlie Day with the strings and the like cork board. You know what I'm talking about? That meme from It's Always Sunny, and he's just like, what does it all mean? Like, my notes were... I gotta show you, look at this. My unhinged, like, map of connections. Like, I just, like, drew lines to everybody.
What the fuck is that? How can you even read that? You've got to put a picture of that in the YouTube for visual stimulation.
Because it is just unhinged and ridiculous.
That is impressive. Is any of it connect in the right spot? You're a friggin' dork. What is that? You should have done an actual cork board.
I was this close to doing. Well, and I started.
I know you have the yarn.
I have the yarn. Like, believe me, I have the yarn. And I was making like detailed timelines of each day. I was like, day 1 timeline. This happens. This happens.
Me too.
This happens. But by day 5, I'm like, fuck it, forget it. Like everything changes so fast. Like I'm just like.
I was doing that for the longest time, and then when I stopped doing it, I started writing ideas like maybe it's this and this is the thing that's happening, and then like 2 paragraphs later it'd be like explain that away, and I'd be like, okay, I'm not gonna waste my time writing down every thought I have that I'm gonna forget in 2 seconds.
Same.
So it's hard to keep track of everything, guys. I mean,
it really is.
It's very impressive that everything in this book connects.
Honestly, the writing is so tight. Like the timelines and sequences are seamless. Kind of like how we went back in the teacher last time and we were like debunking the timeline pretty easily. When you go back, like I went back to the beginning lots of times and was reading different sequences. I'm like, damn, everything is so tight and everything always matched up and all those little crumbs are everywhere. And there's so many moving pieces and characters, and the mapping of it was just masterful. Like,
okay, listen to this. So at the end of the book, if you have the physical copy, there's a couple of things. There's a reading group guide here. There's a conversation with the author, and I did highlight this for a reference quote. But this is the question to the author, who is Stuart Turton. There are so many puzzle pieces and characters and perspectives. How did you keep it all organized while writing the book? And he wrote, or responded, a wall of Post-it notes, an Excel spreadsheet, and a lot of muttering. My editor, Grace, will testify that I didn't nail it out the gate. Every time I changed one small thing, it felt like the entire book fell apart because everything is so connected. One early draft was basically a David Lynch movie spread across 400 pages. Each draft pushes you closer to the final book, though, which is worth remembering when 14 impossible things are all happening at 1:42 p.m. and you're trying to fix it while hungover.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of these questions are like, listen to this one. This actually made me laugh. This is one of the questions. In 100 years, do you believe there will be something similar to Blackheath as a prison system?
Yeah, a very Black Mirror. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very Black Mirror. There's an episode of Black Mirror that's kind of similar to this. Not exactly the same, but similar.
Kind of like a virtual prison.
Yes. And she asked, and would you support such a system? And his response is yes, and not exactly. Our prison system is barbaric, but some people deserve it. That's the tricky part of pinning your flag to the left or right of the moral spectrum. I think the current system is unsustainable, and I think personality adjustment and mental prisons are dangerous, achievable technology someone will abuse. They could also solve a lot of problems. Would you trust your government with it? I suppose that's the question.
Well, it's valid. It's a valid question.
Well, I mean, like, I guess I think it's a little like the prison system we have now, it just works for current. It just works right now. I mean, you just got to put them somewhere. And since we don't have incredibly advanced AI mental abusive technology, I guess I guess we can't do that yet.
Well, yeah, and I'll tap into that a little bit later when we get towards the end. But like, also, I think the point of that question was like, because obviously our prison system is also not built for rehabilitation. It's like we just gotta put you like you're in timeout, and we'll, you know, the
you're
taxpayers
in timeout
will
in a cell forever.
Yeah.
Like,
but what I loved I actually really loved his writing style. Like, I feel like he paints such a vivid picture in just a few words. Like, I felt like I was there. Like, I could totally see it in my head from the get. Like, I felt the ambience, like the gloomy, mysterious vibe of. One thing I was gonna mention about the writing, I don't know how you felt about this, and I saw some other people saying that they hated this about his writing style, but I actually really liked it. He wrote, and this can go either way really easily, like when you write in kind of like metaphors or analogies, but I loved the way that he would write like one sentence that was kind of like a metaphor or analogy, but it conveyed so much with so little words that it wasn't like flowery or like overwritey, but just like really made you feel in that moment. Like, does that make sense? Am I explaining it well?
Well, and like you were saying earlier, this author does such a great job of painting a picture. When you're reading a book, you're entering another place. And that's
but also not
a
only
beautiful thing about reading, but it's so vivid in my head. Yeah.
So I have a couple examples of this. I mean, I didn't mark everyone because like almost every sentence was like, oh my God, like what a great way to write that, to where I could picture exactly what you're talking about. Or just very elegant ways of putting things. Like page 325, he's sneaking down the stairway or the hallway, and you have this sense of like he's trying to be sneaky and quiet, but then the floorboards are being all squeaky, and it says, "The floorboards are his spies, screaming my approach with every step, and the long corridor offers only one way in and out." So just like it, even just like sentences like that, just like make you feel like you're creeping down the hallway, and you can hear the floorboards squeaking.
Oh, but
you're
at
like,
the same time, you can see the scene.
You can, yeah, exactly. Like just like, and that's just like one sentence, but it completely just puts you there without over describing, without being over writey.
Which I think is such a hard balance to strike.
It really is, and so I really loved that.
Yeah, I mean, for a debut author,
in a debut book, yeah,
it's so intricately written. It's very impressive for a first body of work. I mean, it's so intricate and woven together so beautifully. Like a tapestry of characters and possible suspects. Like, it was shocking to me that he was able to get exactly across what he wanted to get across in his first book. I mean, and he's a journalist, so writing is not new to him, but novel, I'm sure writing a novel and writing an article are two completely different styles of writing. And I thought he did such a great job. He's got at least one more book that he's written since this one.
I definitely want to read his other ones. I really enjoyed how distinct each of the hosts were. Like you definitely got a different sense of each host and their kind of like personalities. Like, did you have a favorite host?
I didn't like being in Ravencourt, which is kind of ironic because if you read back in the author's questionnaire or whatever, that was his favorite character to write. I didn't care for Ravencourt's character. That was probably my least favorite out of all the characters. I liked him as Jim Rashton a lot.
Rashton was my favorite.
Yeah, because he kind of was figuring things out. I like Rashton's character. Rashton was a good person. You could tell by like the inside of his head. That was my favorite.
Okay, one thing, like while we're talking about Ravencourt, I have a couple of thoughts there. When we are in Ravencourt, though, I will say it's pretty amazing, though, how the author was able to, like, his descriptions of being in Ravencourt literally kind of gave you, like, a claustrophobic feeling. Like I feel like he did a good job at capturing that sensation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but he also couldn't walk across the room without being out of breath, and that was annoying to me.
No, for sure. I'm just saying, like, that's why it's annoying, and it feels so suffocating because even we're not feeling it, but just the way he describes it, we're like, okay, I'm ready to be out of Ravencourt. One thing I was going to ask you about, because I've been seeing a lot of this regarding this subject, and I'm curious if you felt this way at all, or what your thoughts are on it. Because I kind of disagree, but I've heard a lot of people talking about this book, and one of their biggest beefs that they have with it is how fat phobic it is. But it's like a consistent theme that I'm seeing. And even when I was like doing 1-star reviews and stuff, I was seeing that everywhere. And I'm like, I don't understand how this is fat. Just because he does a job at describing being inside. And let's be clear, like, this is not just like a fat guy or a chubby guy. Like, he's morbidly obese. Like, to the point, like,
he's like really, he can't even walk.
Yeah, this is like my 600-pound life, not just like he's a little overweight. Like that, like he's morbidly obese, and I felt like the author did a good job at describing what it must be like to be inside that kind of a body. But like, I just am not seeing what everyone else is seeing there.
No, I don't agree with that. I mean, there are some people in my family that have been morbidly obese. Like, morbid, like 500 pounds bodies, morbidly obese bodies. And I didn't feel that way.
Okay, I was really curious because I didn't feel that way either. And like, I'm not trying to like, take anything away from the people who did feel that way, because obviously it hit them wrong in some way. But I just like, I didn't feel like the author was trying to fat shame anybody, and that's what everybody is like the fat shaming in this book. I just cannot with it. And I'm like, just because he describes his own like disgust in himself, like that's not, I don't feel like that is.
Well, I think that's one thing about reading that is so interesting to me, is that everybody is going to take different things away from every book they read. Like, there might be some people that have similar opinions, but in general, everybody's going to have or take something different away from each book they read. So, if that is true to some people that read it, that resonates with them and they think it's true, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine.
No, right. It was just really surprising. It was just really surprising me because I just did not get that at all. And if anything,
no, I mean, that's not something that went through my head when I was reading it.
Well, in his writing as Ravencourt, like Ravencourt doesn't enjoy being that size, and he feels trapped inside his own body, which I felt like it kind of reminded me of the movie The Whale.
Oh, with Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser portraying that character, and he describes him because he wore a suit that's like was that heavy, and just even the way that Ravencourt approached everything, like he's like, oh, if I were in this body, I could just like run down the stairs and do this, but I'm so like limited. But he also,
well, whether you think it's fat phobic or not, being in that body, people experience life differently than you and I do, and that's an important part about writing, I think, is being able to capture those kinds of feelings and being able to capture different kinds of characters in different situations, sometimes with different bodies or otherwise. And I do think that when you're reading Ravencourt, you don't want to be there. Like you want to be somewhere else. And he does create an environment where you want to be somewhere else because of the way that he moves around. But here's the thing, Ravencourt, even though he's heavy, is a key to Aiden's character, and he's actually one of the most intelligent characters that he inhabits and figures out the most things because he's just very smart and observant.
Yeah, well, and to the point where Aiden wishes for him often in future hosts. He's like, I wish I had Ravencourt's sharp mind right now, like, and that was kind of the sixes of it, because I actually enjoyed Ravencourt's mind one of the most of the hosts, but then like yeah, you did have that like claustrophobic feeling. I don't know, but what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, like I said before, you do feel kind of claustrophobic in his body. I didn't care for being in Ravencourt's body because I thought it was a little bit boring. But as far as like, it's very imperative to the story. And it was an interesting take on a character. You know, I
thought so too.
For people think that it's fat phobic, you know, I think that in turn, there is not a lot of representation for people who are heavy in books.
That is so true. That's kind of what I thought.
In fact, I think that a lot of characters are overly sexualized or made to be beautiful and pretty, and not everybody is that way. So for me, it was a change from all the other characters.
Yeah. Something new.
Yeah. And you don't always see that a lot in novels or fiction or otherwise. So I was okay with it. I also like the plague doctor thing. That is so interesting. Like, and actually through most of the book, I thought the plague doctor was one of the guests.
Me too.
Yeah, I was like, okay, at first I thought it was one of the guests. And then when the second plague doctor shows up, Silvertear, I thought that was Helena. I thought that was Helena. And I was like, oh, that's Helena. And then he called her some name and I was like, oh, it's not Helena.
Like Josephine or something. I actually thought that the plague doctor was going to be Aiden, like dressing up as the plague doctor to help himself.
Really? That's an interesting. What were some of your guesses? Like initially,
do we want to get that? Do we want to save those for the end, or
hell
do you
no? I want to hear it now. Like what? What did you think? Like, what were your guesses? I have 5 guesses.
I had, I think, 4. Okay, so my first guess, and I even I prefaced my own guess with this is too obvious, but Ted Stanwin was my first guess because at the beginning, in the invitation that we were talking about where everybody is written down, there's a descriptor next to their name, oh, Lord Ravencourt, he's the banker. And Ted Stanwin was the only guest on there that didn't have a descriptor, which I thought was interesting and weird. I noted it. But he was the gamekeeper, and Carver, which is the murderer, or one of the murderers of Thomas, we should say that Carver murdered Thomas along with an accomplice, supposedly. But that accomplice was able to get away, and Carver took the fall for the murder. But that second assailant has always remained a mystery. No one ever knows. But Ted Stanwin was supposedly the gamekeeper that came upon the murder and tried to save Thomas, but was unsuccessful. But even in doing that, the Hardcastles rewarded him with a plantation. So he is elevated out of the position of servant and is now a gentleman because even though
a gentleman. Sorry.
So anyway, but then Ted is also at this party. He's a little bit aggressive with one of the maids, and it just seems kind of sketchy that he was the one to come across the murder. So I was like, maybe as a gamekeeper and Carver was the groundskeeper, they were friends. And I thought that maybe he's bitter at the Hardcastle kids because they already have more than he does or ever will. Pretends to get drunk with Carver because they say that they'd gotten drunk and whipped themselves into a frenzy. But convinces Carver
themselves.
And convinces Carver to murder Thomas so that he can save him and be the hero, but it goes too far and he's killed anyway. Attempts to save him, and he's rewarded anyway, but the guilt leaves him mean and on edge. But then I immediately was like, but as the gamekeeper, it would make sense for him to be out there and organically come upon the attack. So I kind of
I didn't think it was Ted, only because I thought that was the obvious choice.
Well, and that's why I said it's too obvious, but
I was like, okay, he's definitely one of the red herrings. That's what I thought in my head, which is, if you don't know what a red herring is, it's it's the person they try to, in mystery or whodunits, they try to make obvious, like, oh, this is the person that did it, but the red herring is that person and it's never that person. So I was like, okay, he's got to be the red herring because he's got his hand in too many pots. He's wicked from the very beginning. So like your brain automatically goes to, oh, this person is suspicious, and it's always the person you medium suspect.
Yep, always.
It's never the person you most or least expect. It's medium
suspect. Also, my second theory, I think it was around page like 100, 109. I started to wonder if the plague doctor was Thomas, because since his murder was never solved, like maybe he's also been trapped in Blackheath, unable to move on this whole time.
He is. He's a ghost in the lake.
Yeah, but we didn't find out that to the very end. So I started to wonder if Thomas was the plague doctor. And then because
Thomas
Evelyn
is there, by the way. He's in the lake. Like, his ghost is in there.
Yeah.
And if you go in there, he's in there. It's like an episode of Supernatural.
But at the beginning, I was thinking that Evelyn was probably murdered by the same person who murdered Thomas. So I was like, well, maybe that's why the plague doctor is kind of helping to try to solve both murders of both Hardcastle children. They do also have a brother named Michael who is present.
Oh yeah.
What was your first guess?
My first guess was Aiden. I thought that maybe at the end he was going to kill Evelyn for some reason.
I did wonder that.
That was my first thought. My second thought was that it was the plague doctor. That he was kind of orchestrating everything and kind of behind everything, and that the plague doctor was a character or a guest in the house, and that it was all just like a big fucking game. That was my third. And then at that point, I was about halfway through the book and I was thinking, okay, I think that it was someone who was present for the death of Thomas. That's where my head, I thought immediately, okay, Charlie Carver did not do it. It was someone who was there. And so I was trying to figure out in my head if it was Evelyn, Charles. I thought Charles might be one of them. Might be one. The reason I thought it might be Charles was because he was present he was on the, and he's now a butler for Ravencourt, or a footman for Ravencourt. Yeah. And I thought maybe he was killing Evelyn to punish her or the Hardcastles for his father being blamed for Thomas's death. So I thought maybe it was him. I thought maybe it was Peter, the father, only not because necessarily he killed Thomas. I didn't think that he killed Thomas, but I thought maybe he was orchestrating this as a way to like get rid of all of his problems, because they're running out of money. They're being blackmailed by Ted Stanwin, and his wife. It's her fault. She had an affair with Charlie Carver and had the kid. And I thought maybe it was him. And also, he was not very present for most of the book. He's in what was he in, the boathouse or the
gatehouse? The
gatehouse. He's in the gatehouse for most of the book. So I thought he had the means, the opportunity. Maybe a little bit of motive there. My third guess was Evelyn Hardcastle. That was my third guess. And this is what I wrote in my notes right here.
I'm excited.
Under my guesses. Look, to prove it, Evelyn Hardcastle. I put number 3, and this is what I wrote. She has the most motive and the most to gain. Her parents don't care about her, dislike her, blame her for Thomas's death, sent her away to Paris, and she has been gone for 19 years. She could be anyone in this house, and they may not even recognize her. That's what I put. And then I put Felicity from the note maybe is playing Evelyn with a question mark. Felicity.
Nice.
And that is the end. That is actually exactly what happens in the end. So once I got to that point, I was like, oh. And I'm not saying that I was like disappointed by it. But my brain went there. I totally like it.
I mean,
did.
our brains are extra because you know what's funny? Evelyn was my third guess as well, but I want to tell you my second guess.
Oh, what's your second guess?
Okay. And this was actually super, super early on before it's revealed that Carver is Cunningham's father. I guessed that early.
Oh, yeah.
And only because I was taking so many goddamn notes that I started to...
I know, because it's like, I'm going to write down every thought.
I'm going to write down everything.
You know?
But I started abbreviating everybody's names with initials because I'm not writing everybody's names out all the time. And then when I came across Cunningham as a character, his initials are also CC. Charlie Carver, Charles Cunningham. And I was like, ooh, same initials. What? Okay. I think that, okay, now here's guess number 2. I say Charles Cunningham, who is actually Carver's son. He killed Thomas, and that's why because I was like, why would Carver take the fall for someone? Like, that's a big deal to, like, not only be arrested for, take the fall for, but he's hanged for this crime.
Well, I could see him doing it. Now, at the beginning, I did not think that Evelyn killed Thomas now. I just figured it was somebody from back then. I was like, it would make the most sense for it to be someone that was present back then for sure. Like, and not just present, but like at the crime scene present.
Also, because the plague doctor says you have to like show your work if you're going to make a guess. So like this is me like trying to
show your work.
Show my work. So Ted Stanwyck did come upon them, but the only thing he saw from a fleeing Cunningham was his tattoo, because it mentions that he has a tattoo. Cunningham does. And then maybe Ted sees it now and flashes back and like, oh, that's the guy. And later I wrote down that it was strengthened by the fact that Helena Hardcastle is actually his mother. So that's even more reason for him to be resentful of the other children by getting the name and the standing that he doesn't have, despite being just as much of her child as they are.
Oh, not only that, probably scorned by Peter.
Right. And
I definitely thought he was the one that killed Peter.
Right. And then that also strengthens his motive to kill Evelyn Hardcastle, because not only with Thomas and the kids earlier, but now he's Ravencourt's valet, and Evelyn's about to marry him and get the title and the money, and he's going to watch another Hardcastle child getting that lifestyle that he feels like he should be equally entitled to.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's a great
theory. And in this theory I said he kidnaps Felicity Maddox to get Evelyn to kill herself. So I did kind of get on the suicide thing earlier. And in one of my theories right after that, I wrote down, is this even Evelyn Hardcastle? She's been gone for 19 years. How would anyone know what she looked like? She could be an imposter. So I did also.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I thought too. I was like, okay, she's been gone in Paris for 19 years. And also, you send your child away for that long?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you send your child away that long? Like, she's got to be. And then you bring her back just to marry her off. Like, she's got to be pissed. Like, there's no way that. And not only that, you're talking about, like, someone with pedigree. You know, a lot of those people in society, they will do whatever it takes to protect themselves, including blackmail, murder. I mean, back then, too, it's so much harder to prove anything than it is now. It's so much easier to kill someone than it is now, I'm sure. Because they can't prove it. There's no fingerprints. There's no DNA. There's none of that shit. I mean, you could figure out a way to make it work for yourself.
Right.
That
was a pretty solid guess, though, right?
That's a solid guess. We're like basically miniature detectives.
Oh yeah, we've been Nancy Drewing it all our lives. Like...
Oh yeah. I was like, I will figure this out. One thing I didn't see coming was I did not see coming that Michael Hardcastle would try to kill Well, it's not Evelyn. You think it's Evelyn the
think it's
entire
Evelyn.
time, but the character of Evelyn is actually Felicity.
Right.
And Evelyn is her maid pretending to be her maid. What's her maid's name?
Madeline.
Madeline
Aubert.
It's not Albright?
No, it's Aubert.
Oh. Wow.
I actually did guess Michael. He was my spidey senses were going off.
But he didn't try to kill Evelyn. He tried to kill Madeline.
But I right.
Or Felicity.
But
What?
I did guess
What
that
am
he
I
was involved.
See what I mean with the names?
Okay, so all right, so here was my guess 3, and I wrote it down. Evelyn is going to fake her own death to be free of her parents and avoid marrying Ravencourt, but the killer knows the plan, switches the gun or bullet, and actually kills her. Hence the shock look on her face.
She thought it was going to be a blank, and it wasn't a blank.
Yeah, and so I thought that the person, and that point, I was still on Cunningham. Cunningham was my main suspect through the majority of the book, and the farther I got, it kind of strengthened that theory. But then I was like,
well, for me, it got weaker because he was my 5th guess. But for me, I was like, okay.
Because I thought that,
right.
Well, like you said, I thought that Cunningham killed Peter, and we find Peter dead in the boathouse, and and Evelyn, there's a note on the body being like, I hate my parents and blah, blah, blah. This is justice. And Evelyn is taking credit for the murder.
It is Evelyn that kills him, though. The real Evelyn.
The real Evelyn. But you think it's a frame
switch.
because like, and the Evelyn faking her own death was part of the thing. And the switching of the gun and the bullet also was part of the plan. But I thought that Cunningham was also trying to frame Evelyn in the process after he had killed Peter.
Yeah.
And then I said, or Michael as an accomplice as in this situation. So I guessed most of that, just not.
Well, here's the thing, though. The person that kills Evelyn Hardcastle, I guess, isn't Evelyn Hardcastle.
No.
It's Madeline Aubert.
Well, no, Madeline Aubert is the real Evelyn Hardcastle.
No, it's... Oh, wait, no, Felicity.
Yeah, Felicity is a con woman who
is the one that actually
pretending.
kills Evelyn, because she, at the very end, she is like, oh, you tried to kill me, I'm gonna kill you. And she just pops up and shoots the real Evelyn, who was pretending to be Madeline this whole time. So the answer to who kills Evelyn Hardcastle is Felicity
Maddox.
That is who kills her.
In every loop, though, that sequence of events has never happened before. Because what happens is the real Evelyn, masquerading as Evelyn's maid, is going to set it up for her con woman pretending to be her to commit suicide. And then she, in that way, fakes her death, escapes her family name, doesn't have to marry Ravencourt, and then Felicity's paid handsomely to pretend to be dead. They've paid off the doctor to forge the death certificate already, so everything is set up for both of these women to get away. Now, Evelyn...
Michael tries to kill...
because they're not sure...
Michael tries to shoot the woman masquerading as Evelyn Hardcastle while she's passed out. That was their plan. And in case that fell through, and in case that fell through, the real Evelyn poisoned the fake Evelyn's drink in her room. And Michael and her accidentally drink it, and Michael dies.
But Michael did not know that Evelyn had poisoned Felicity as a backup and drinks the rest of her drink, and he dies himself. And one of Aiden's...
That's really awful for Evelyn when she finds out, because she didn't plan on that happening, and she's like, you're lying! Michael's not dead, because she really actually loves her brother. Mm-hmm. And they kind of plan this whole thing together to free both of them, because Michael is going to free up the ability for him to get his inheritance because Peter Hardcastle is dead, and Evelyn doesn't have to marry Ravencourt or do any of these things that her family has set up for her to do because everyone thinks she's dead, even though she's not.
And their dad had been squandering their fortunes, so Michael gets the inheritance early, and then she says that he's buying the blackmail business from Coleridge and Stanwin. So they have a plan, and
but it all falls apart.
And if Evelyn had told Michael, like, this is a backup, I'm going to poison her just in case, he ends up inadvertently drinking the poison. And Aiden is present for this in one of the future hosts, and had left a note
at that time.
I think he was Rashton.
He was Rashton. Yeah. So he was the police officer.
He was the police officer. Because he was like all like thinky in his mind, and he figures out a lot of the puzzle pieces going on because his brain is built like a cop, like a detective.
Oh yeah, because like in each body, like when he's inside, for an example, when he's inside the Playboy Donald Davies, he's thinking about raping women all the time.
No, that's Derby. That's Derby.
Oh, I'm sorry. Another D. When he's in
Davies
Derby, when he's in Derby, he's thinking about raping women all the time because Derby is a violent, petulant heir. And he's just, always doing these scandalous things that people are having to get him out of. And that personality overtakes Aiden when he's in his body sometimes, and he gets like overly violent, or that part of it is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because it really shakes things up. It makes you think what's going to happen next. You don't know what's going to happen next because even Aiden doesn't know how he's going to react to things sometimes.
Yes.
And that kind of shakes the story up a little bit, which I love, that when he's inside the host, he's not just Aiden.
Yeah. This is kind of something we were talking about earlier at the beginning when you have no context for anything. A lot of people I saw online complained about Aiden's lack of character to connect with, but like I disagree, because that's the point, because he also doesn't have a sense of who he is, and he, loses himself through the host, but then is also discovering himself through the host because he's feeling different. Like, ooh, I don't like that reaction I just had. Like when he's in Derby, he's horrified by that like knee-jerk reaction that he couldn't help, but he feels the rage and the violence in his body. And then, or like when he's in Belle, when he's genuinely disappointed that Belle is actually a criminal, and he wants to be different,
Yeah. Well, one thing that like really confused me about this book and made me like kind of laugh is how is everybody just like, oh, okay, we're in something supernatural. I'm totally accepting of that and not even questioning it. What do we do next? Like everybody, he's like, well, we're in a time loop and I'm not actually this person. I'm Aiden. And they're like, okay, well, let's get going then, Aiden. Like, nobody is like, what? Like, I just have a hard time thinking, like, even in that scenario, I feel like there's going to be at least one character that just is, like, hysterical and doesn't believe you.
Right. Well, and I think, like, you're right. I also do think that it sets that up a little bit because it's Aiden himself doesn't embrace the structure until, like, his fourth host. Like, the first, when he kind of finds out some of the stuff, he's like, whatever, I got to get out of here. And he keeps trying to escape Blackheath. And he's like, you can't do it. You're going to have to just embrace it. And it's not until he's in Ravencourt, which is number 4, that he actually starts to try. Like, he spends his whole day as Davies trying to escape. And then he ends up out in the middle of nowhere. And that's like a waste of a host. So it does take him a while, but the longer they're there, they do have that thing that they wake up with, that word or that thought that they wake up with. So that also strengthens their, like, and Anna does make a comment. She's like, I know that I don't remember anything, but I also can feel how long I've been here. And I've been here for decades. Like, I just know it in my gut somewhere, even though I can't remember anything. So
let's talk about Anna, because Anna was a character that really frustrated me. I felt like I didn't understand the strength between those two characters, like as far as their relationship goes. I don't really think there was enough to go on for them to have that unshakable bond that they have. Anna, her character itself, there is not a lot of character development there. It's just very fleeting. When we got to the end and we're finding out why Anna's in this hell or this prison, is because she killed Aiden's sister, and that's why he decides to go into this loop, and volunteers to go into it, because he wants to torture her, with the memories that he can't hold on to at all, which doesn't make any sense to me. But in general, I felt like his description of Anna's misdoings in order for her to be in the place that they are in to be very vague. He doesn't.
I felt that way too.
Yeah, he doesn't. The author does not go into detail.
I did. Yes, I completely
about what
agree.
Anna, which her name in the real world when she was a murderous person. And she tortured and killed Aiden's sister.
And apparently she was basically a leader of a terrorist organization. Like not only
kind, yeah.
It was, and I did write that down. I thought I wanted
It
more.
doesn't really say.
I wanted more from the Annabelle backstory because it felt too vague compared to how specific everything else was.
Well, and her name in before she is put into this loop is Annabelle Cocker. That was her name. So Anna is kind of shortened from that. But it doesn't, all it says is she tortured Aiden's sister for a total of like 8 hours for all the world to see. But that's all they say. They don't really go into detail about what she did, how the world saw it. I thought it was very weird that kind of detail was not included. And it left me with a lot of questions. Like when we walked away at the end, I had so many questions that were never answered.
Me too.
And that is very frustrating for me because I do feel like, especially in like mystery books, at the end, there shouldn't be those questions. There shouldn't be like 10 questions that you're asking yourself and wondering about forever that you'll never have resolved.
I 100%. I have like a little list of questions, and those questions don't even present themselves into the last couple of chapters, and then it kind of ends. And everything else leading up to this is so tight, and all these questions are getting answered, and then all of a sudden, here's a slew of new information, and then the book just kind of ends, and the book also ends really open-ended.
Oh yeah.
Like
okay, I wrote down all the questions that I have. I ended with a list of questions that I had.
Me too.
Did you? Okay. There are a million. I said,
a million.
These are just questions there's no answers to. And as soon as I was done reading the book, I sat down at my computer, frustrated, and I said, I'm just going to type out all my questions I have while they're popping in my head. And I wrote, what did Anna do? Not descriptive enough. Are they dead? Is this hell? Are they in a dreamlike state? Is this in their head? Do they start living in the time period that they were looping in? Is this the government or a higher power? Are they in love? Was Anna a young, hot crime lord? Are the bodies they are in the bodies they have to keep? Too many unanswered questions for me. Kind of falls apart. Not a lot of character development with Anna, so I never got very attached to her. Would have felt fine if she died. Why would he want to take her with him? That doesn't make sense to me. He wants to stay to torture her knowing he won't even remember what she did in the first place. Jacket says witnesses, but really should be witnesses of the day or hosts of guests would have been more clever for Aiden not to know he killed Evelyn and he killed her. Because she was a random guest, he kills as a guest. Like, what if, like, in the story, he kills Evelyn on accident? Because he doesn't know that she's Evelyn. because she's masquerading as another guest.
Well, but that's the thing is, like, even the plague doctors didn't know that Evelyn wasn't the real Evelyn.
Right. But I mean, like, I thought it would have been more twisty if the answer was actually that Aiden killed Evelyn on accident, or somebody killed her on accident at the party because they didn't know that the maid was Evelyn.
Yep.
And then he figures out, like, that would have, for me, that would have been like a bam in your face twist, because there's no way for you to figure that out.
Right.
Yeah. So I was just kind of frustrated at the end.
Here was some of my questions that I had. I said, well, first of all, I was like, I want so much more clarity on what Blackheath is. Like, at first it seemed like it was this, like, kind of afterlife purgatory or, like, a hell replacement. But then when they leave, they're just, like, resuming their lives. Like, were they aging while they were here? Is this, like,
Yeah.
Like, is this, like, they were in there for, like, 5 minutes in the real world, but, like, it's been 30 years in their minds?
Yeah, kind of like Inception, or, like...
Right, I'm like, is this a virtual prison, like Black Mirror style? If all of the Hardcastle children were fathered by Carver, because we find out that all of them were fathered by Carver, why is Cunningham the only one that's like, considered illegitimate? Like, that also didn't make sense to me. Like, why?
Oh, yeah.
Like, why was he raised by the cook?
Oh, maybe... Well, I did think maybe Peter didn't know or realize that all of her children were Carvers. But, like, also, how would you know if you're having sex with both of them?
Right.
The only reason I was like, okay, Evelyn is definitely Carver's at the end was because they made a lot of comments, and that was one thing that I did miss when, because Madeline, when Aiden wakes up as Gold on the last day, the night before, he had sex with the real Evelyn as Madeline.
Yeah.
And it says when she's getting up to leave the room from that encounter, as he's waking up as Aiden in Gold, it says that she has pockmarks all over her face. And then in the end, she's got pockmarks basically from acne. That's what that's from. So, like, acne scars. And I remembered at the beginning of the book that Charlie Carver had acne scars. So that was a little crumb.
I did not catch that.
Yes, right?
Nice.
So that was a little crumb in there, because as soon as we find out that Madeline is Evelyn, and they say that stuff about her pockmarks, and I was like, oh my God, he said that earlier when she was leaving the room, and I did not catch that. And it was a nice little breadcrumb that was thrown in there that was a clue that I missed.
Yeah, I did not pick up on that one. That's a good one. You know what one I did pick up on, though, and I did guess correctly, was Lucy Harper, the maid, being Ted Stanwin's daughter.
Oh, I didn't see that coming.
Because she was described as having red hair and blue eyes, and then Ted was also described as having red hair and blue eyes. And I know because I was taking stupid notes and I wrote down all that shit. And I'm like, this is going to come in useful. And so when it's discovered that they're going to use Ted's child somewhere as a bargaining chip, because Ted's blackmailing everybody. And I was like, oh, I bet it's Lucy. And as a maid, she's like poised to get all these secrets and help him like blackmail people. So I did guess
That's a really great observation. I knew that there was something there, because I thought that the interaction that happens in the hall, was it in the hallway or in the dining room?
Yeah,
when they're eating, there's like a weird reaction. There's a weird interaction between Ted Stanwin and Lucy. And I was like, there's something there, but I don't know what it is. Like, it just went right. I was like, I don't know what he's doing.
So in my theory, when I was like wondering if it was, and I said that that's why he gets mad at her, because her familiarity with him could blow their cover. Because she like calls him Ted, and he's like, how dare you address me in such informality, madam.
It's like Taryn. It's like Taryn in Fourth Wing. How dare you talk to me?
Or what was it? What movie is it where in Ever After, like when he finds out that she's like the maid and he's like, "Do not address me so informal, madam."
Oh my god, I love that movie.
Oh, that movie's so good.
My favorite part of that movie is when she picks him up.
Yes.
He's like, "You can take whatever you can carry," and she's like, "All right, well, I'm gonna take this guy." And he's like twice her size. And she just picks him up and like waddles away.
And he's like, "Oh, come on back. I'll give you a horse." Fuck it. That was funny.
It's just too funny. Like,
that
he could have.
so
Okay,
good.
I have a question. And this is a genuine question because I don't even know why I wrote this note. Okay. But I wrote in this notes this question, like somewhere randomly in the middle. I wrote, "Who the hell is Keith Parker?" And then I put, "Oh my god, not more people. Just stick with these guys." And like, I don't even, like, I was reading through my notes yesterday and I was like, who is that? Like, why did I write that? Like, I don't even remember who Keith Parker is.
So Keith Parker is the other child that went missing around the same time as Thomas.
Okay, all right. That's who that is.
Okay, would you like to hear my final guess?
Yes, I would.
Okay, this was my guess number 4. This was my 4th guess.
This is your last one, then.
This is my last guess, and this is what I wrote. Evelyn Hardcastle herself. She is Thomas's killer. She organized the treasure hunt because Thomas ran off at a certain time because his big sister told him to, and she killed him. I didn't know why. I was like, but why? Was it an accident? I said, did she also kill that other boy, Keith Parker, because he saw? And she didn't have time to hide Thomas's body too before they were discovered. Helena finds her bloody clothes last year, like a year ago when she started acting all weird, and knows Evelyn's responsible. Evelyn kills her parents too and will get away with it by faking her death, making it look like a suicide, but is actually killed by Michael? Question mark. But that's as far as I got on that. But
I thought that's
pretty close, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. That is close. Like, we nailed it. I did think,
high five.
You know, this is also like twinning, but I thought the person who killed Thomas was Charles Cunningham. And the reason I thought that he killed Thomas was because he was jealous. Thomas was the favorite. Charles Cunningham was there. He had motive, means, opportunity. And then also I was like, well, maybe that other kid that went missing, like, he killed him afterwards. Or I thought maybe somebody made him disappear that knew that he saw. Because who cares about the stable kid?
Yeah. Well, like I said, Cunningham was my biggest suspect through most of the book.
Right. I didn't think that he killed Evelyn, but I thought that he killed Thomas.
Well, I thought that Evelyn's killer and Thomas's killer were going to be the same person.
I did not.
I thought they were going to be killed by the same person.
I just thought that would be too obvious, I think. I thought that it would be more intricate than that. And it's very intricate. Like, why don't you tell, like, let's talk about that. Like, what Evelyn actually did when Aiden and Anna get her monologuing, like in The Incredibles.
Yeah, you have to have that classic villain monologue at the end. So basically, Evelyn, as a child, actually murdered her brother, Thomas. Her brother. Because it turns out that one of the other children, little boy that had gone missing previously, that nobody ever like thought twice about, Evelyn was actually responsible for his disappearance because they went down to the caves and he fell in a hole. Is this the stable boy? Yeah, the stable boy.
The stable boy. Keith.
So that came first. Yes, yeah. Keith Parker, who came first. And he falls into a deep hole and she's like, I'm going for help. And then because she's a little fucking psychopath, she's like, I decided not to get help. And I just basically left him there to die. The only problem with this is that Thomas followed her and knew that she was at the caves. So he knew that she was involved in that. So she set up the treasure hunt to lure him away and to murder him. And then we kind of find out all the ins and outs of that scenario. So that's kind of the gist. But then when
so
her
cold,
parents,
man.
Helena,
How old was she?
She was like 10 years old, and she's so
That's
callous
crazy.
about it too. And when Charlie Carver and her
So
mother
demure.
Helena come upon them, so demure, and she basically plays it off like it was an accident, and they believe her right away and don't think twice about it, and then go to work covering up the murder. So
Yeah, I remember all that. I remember thinking that is all of it. And when she tried to kill Thomas, she tried to kill him by hitting him with a rock. But it didn't.
Right,
He
yes.
was just like, ow, yeah, and started to cry. And so she was like, well, I guess I gotta fucking drown this kid now. Like, what? It's so crazy.
Well, her plan was
Yeah.
to drown him, like knock him out and drown him. But then since he started screaming, that's why she ended up stabbing him.
Oh, that's right. Well, I
To get him
think
to
she
be
thought
quiet.
the hit would kill him.
Mhm.
She thought
Or
it
at
would
least
kill
knock him
him when she
unconscious
hit him
enough
with
to
the rock.
drag him to the lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
nope,
cold. I
didn't
wish
work out
they
that
had
way.
kind of gone into that a little bit more, because we get her kind of quick villain monologue about it, and then kind of move on fairly quickly from that.
Well, I'll tell you how I did it, you mangy kids. Is that what they say?
Now that I've been
Mangy?
unmasked.
I don't think the right word is
You
mangy. I don't
kids.
think that's the word.
No. You daggone
You.
kids.
You darn kids.
This is like when Andy can't
No.
remember the Kit Kat commercial.
I
Break me off a
was
piece of
literally
that
just thinking football cream.
football cream.
It's football cream. It's football cream. That's what
Guys,
Michael
nobody
says.
tell him.
It's football cream.
It's football cream. That's gonna drive me crazy.
That's good.
You pesky kids. I would have gotten away with it too.
You pesky.
If it weren't for you.
If it wasn't for you pesky kids and that darn dog. I almost said that darn
Is
cat.
that right?
Like the movie.
Is that right? I don't know.
Yeah, pesky
All right, that
sounds
was-
better.
that was
I don't think my word was right. One of the things that kind of I didn't really, I mean, you've got this incredibly intricate, complicated puzzle that you have to solve. For most of them, it's probably impossible. And then you got to throw the footman in there. Like, that's a little bit of overkill for me.
I did
especially
hear,
like his goal was to kill Aiden the whole time. Like he kept trying to go and kill it. Why Aiden? Because he has like a better chance because of his knowledge, maybe.
Well,
I don't really get it, because I know that he was trying to kill Anna the whole time, because the people that have made this prison, have made this loop, the plague doctor's superiors, whoever they may be, because they don't really go into detail, they don't want Anna to leave because she did such terrible things. But it kind of defeats the whole purpose if you're like, well, but I want you to be even more stuck than your impossible situation already makes you. Like, I don't know.
So-
I didn't like the footman thing.
well, here's I kind of thought that until the end, and when you realize at the very end, because throughout the book, a decent chunk of it, Daniel Coleridge, the gambler, approaches Aiden and he's like, I'm your final host. I'm you 4 days from now, and seems to be a helpful character. But in the end, we find out that that's actually not true at all. And Daniel is the other person inside of Blackheath trying to escape. Because the plague doctor says it's you, and you have two rivals who are also trying to get out, but only one of you can leave. And we assume that it's the footman, but it's actually Daniel, and he's hired the footman to take out Anna and Aiden, so that way he has no competition left in Blackheath.
But I just don't understand. Like, I just think that the footman thing is too much. It's like overkill on top of everything else. Like, I almost feel like he was trying to create more suspense by having the footman like you also have to avoid getting killed by this guy.
I totally see what you're saying, and I agree to a point, but also for the majority of the book, we also think that the footman is the third person, and so does Aiden.
I never thought that the footman was a third. I always thought he was like hired basically to try and like fuck with it, even though it's already crazy.
Well, Daniel
like, trying to like.
Well, that you find out in the end that Daniel is in league with the footman and has set the footman on everybody. I will say that like for how intricate it's built, it has a little bit of Game of Thrones season 8 ending, where it's like you spent so much time creating the tapestry, and then the last little bit kind of goes brrr, and it's a little too fast. And things are under-explained.
Yeah, I mean, I like the ending of Game of Thrones, though. We don't agree with that on that.
Okay, well, we agree on the fact that like I don't mind all the things that happen. It's just like the way it happened and the speed in which it happened did not feel fair to the characters. Anyway, that's a different topic. We do not have time to sidebar. Why don't we get to know what Aiden and Anna do afterwards? Do they stay together? Do they go their separate ways? What was the point if they don't retain any of their memories of everything that they learned? Because I guess getting their memories back is optional as they're leaving. How did the plague doctors not know any of it when they're kind of the ones that created it? If Aiden entered voluntarily as an innocent man, why did he have to solve it to leave? Why couldn't he just leave? Like, why did they even let him go in there if this is supposed to be a prison?
Well, and also, yeah, that was kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. I just didn't, there was so many questions. And also, how did he get to the point where he could, because if they're dead, if this is like an afterlife thing, and it's kind of like a karma kind of thing, how was he put in the position where he could decide to go there? Who did he talk to go there?
Well, and that's where it kind of fell.
It falls apart at the end.
It fell apart a little bit at the end, which like.
Oh, he could have just kept writing and described these issues and resolved these issues. I mean, there's no way he didn't think of them with how intricately and all the time that he spent writing this. There's no way that those questions didn't occur to him as well. My question is, why were we left on this like cliffhanger of not really understanding where these people came from, where they are, what's going on, or even like a resolution of what happens after.
Right. And also, how is it that the real Evelyn Hardcastle, who was guilty of Thomas's murder the whole time and was a key player in a lot of the deaths and murders that were happening at Blackheath, not on the plague doctor's radar at all with her evilness? And that's the whole point of Blackheath. And when Anna leaves, if she's served her sentence, because the plague doctor says, okay, well, you've served your sentence, you made the guess, you're free to leave. But then he says, you're going to have to run forever. Like, you get out, you run, you don't look back. Like, why would they have to run? Who are they running from? Like,
and and also like they get to decide not to keep the memories that they were before and to start over, kind of like a reincarnation kind of a thing.
Right. Well, and I think that was the biggest frustration for me, because like, what time period are we actually in? Is there a supernatural element, or is this like a sci-fi high-tech element? Like, were the other guests just blueprints of the original? Like, how is it like a Westworld-esque curated non-people that are programmed with all the memories that are like not real? Or like, are we in a afterlife purgatory situation, or is this a virtual prison? Because apparently they're just gonna leave and like all your possessions will be returned to you. And
oh yeah, like that's what I mean. Like earlier when we were talking about this, and I was just rambling off my questions. Like, what kind of construct is this? Do they just keep the body they're in? Is this a mental thing?
Right, like
are they picking up in the time period they left off in? Like, I don't understand.
Right, because also like it's clearly not like the early 1900s or whatever, because it's like, well, the death of Evelyn or the murder of Evelyn Hardcastle was never solved. So that implies that this is something that happened a long time ago, which kind of gives you like a supernatural purgatory time loop, like a haunted time loop to where like none of these souls can move on from this like Blackheath place. But then the way that it ends kind of is like, oh, well, my superiors don't like this. And then it kind of like, oh, this is the bad place. Like,
like who's your yeah, like like the good place, like who is your superior?
Like it gets really confusing.
I don't understand. I feel like
why are we like,
I feel like and I think the reason I got so frustrated with it is because it's set up to be kind of like a supernatural hell, like purgatory, like you're here, you're being punished for your sins kind of situation.
Yes, yeah.
But then at the end they just walk away from the estate and they don't really go into tell you like, oh, what happens next. And it's like, and then we lived happily ever after. And I was like, but that's not the story. Like,
yeah,
first of all, you don't find out about really what Anna did. Not really.
No, it's super vague.
And then also you don't find out, like, he doesn't resolve the world he's created, but he creates all of these questions.
Yeah.
So for me, that's when I was like,
Me too. Like,
I loved it all the way up until the end, and then I was frustrated.
Same.
And
it
kind of gave me the same feeling as when I finished Lost.
Yeah.
Like, there's still a million questions that I have that were never answered, and now it's over, and there's not going to be any more.
Right, and
also those are
also
just left floating around in my head.
Right, and also these questions are not even introduced into like the last couple chapters when everything is being like curtains open, everything is coming to light, and then the way that it ends. I would have preferred it to be more of like a afterlife purgatory thing, because you even have like the ghost of Thomas like holding him down in the water or like being with him, so you have these like supernatural ghost haunting type of elements, and then when it's over, then it's like, oh well, this is just this like high-tech virtual matrix prison for your mind, and now you're just gonna go and
also like the innocent people like Thomas that are in this loop, they're just stuck there.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, was even this whole story even real, or was this all just a complete fabrication?
Yeah. Also, I saw the Daniel Coleridge twist and him being bad a million miles away. That was so easy to pick out. Like, immediately, almost from the beginning, I was like, this guy's twisted.
That was actually one of my first notes. My first note that I actually wrote down for the book. We find out he's met by someone named Daniel Coleridge. He does not seem alarmed or worried at all. He's cagey. I'm already suspicious of him. Like, that was my first note of the book.
Also, there was a lot of moments where I was super annoyed with Aiden. Like, I did not think that his blind faith in Evelyn or Anna was realistic. I mean, he's just like, oh, but I'm going to save her, and oh, but I can't let this happen. I made a promise. Like, who gives a shit? You're stuck in this loop. None of these people really care about you. They all want to get out.
Right.
And as soon as you find that out, you're still so diehard about saving Anna. And then you find out she murdered your sister. And you even start to remember those like emotions you felt when your sister was murdered. And you're like, oh, but that's not what she's like now. That's not who she is now. Like, I am 100% on Anna's side. Like, that just, for me,
Yeah.
fell apart.
Especially when the plague
Yeah.
doctor warns him specifically, like, I've watched this loop a lot of times, like, she will betray you. She betrays you.
Yeah. Well, and I understand not trusting the plague doctor and, like, trusting your own gut instincts.
Right.
But at the same time, like, some of those gut instincts really don't make any sense to me. It's kind of like a blind faith kind of a situation. And then also, like, in the end, he's like, no, I am not leaving without her, even though I know the only reason I'm here is because I wanted to punish her.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
and you find out in
I don't
other
get it.
loops, because, like, he's there for so long and he's tortured her for so long that he loses his sense of self the longer he's there. But then because he loses his sense of self, he doesn't even remember why he's there anymore. But then Anna also gets these flashbacks of, like, oh, you murdered me. And he's like, yeah, sorry about that. I don't feel that way anymore.
The whole thing with Aiden talking to the plague doctor, him letting them go at the end and being satisfied with the results. At the end of the day, I just felt like the plague doctor was tired of being there. Okay, I'll just let both of you go if that means that you'll go, because I'm so tired of I don't know. It fell apart for me at the end.
Yeah, me too.
It you know, and it didn't help that I guessed the ending.
Yeah.
That was super
too.
annoying to me because I wanted it to be mind-blowing, and it wasn't. The writing and the book was mind-blowing, but that the reveals were not. Like, the
only
big twists
thing that
were
surprised me, the only thing that I did not see was that Felicity Maddox was or that the real Evelyn was Madeline. Like,
right.
That everybody else knew her as Madeline. Like, that I was like, oh, Madeline. Oh, okay.
Well, see, I thought that Felicity Maddox was playing Evelyn from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we saw that name and realized she wasn't any of the guests,
yeah,
I
and then
like,
she had the
that's
castle.
That's got to be Felicity.
Yeah, she had because in the note she drew the castle. That was like her signature. So, like, I figured that out. I just didn't. The only thing I was surprised by was that Madeline was the real Evelyn.
Yeah, that did shock me. Although I knew that the real Evelyn had to be one of the guests. Mm-hmm. I didn't know which one.
Yeah. So that was the only thing that was the only thing that surprised me.
And honestly, I don't know about you, but I didn't even try to figure out which one.
Mm-mm.
No.
I was like, one of the things that I kept going back to that I couldn't quite figure out why it was going to be important was Millicent. I was like, what is her deal? Like, I'm like, she's gonna play a role in the final thing because she's kind of been at the center of some of the notes and stuff. And I'm like, how does she of all people, who's kind of a minimal player, keep factoring into the grand scheme of things? And then,
well, she
recognized the real Evelyn. That's why she was murdered.
Yeah, the picture. She recognized the real Evelyn from a picture and remembered, like, oh, wait a minute, that's her. Which, okay, can I just say, like, if Millicent Derby could have figured out that was her from the picture, and even at the end, Evelyn says something, the real Evelyn says something along the lines of, well, it was just basically like I was wearing a wig and she just knew right away. Like, if Millicent Derby could figure that out, explain to me how her own parents couldn't look at her and realize.
Well, that's the thing. She never knew, never interacted with her parents because she killed Helena basically first thing in the morning at their first meeting. So Helena was off the map the whole time.
She?
Yeah, because the whole time she was dead in the boathouse. Because remember, Helena never keeps her appointments the rest of the day and she's MIA. So she killed her right out the gate. And Peter, she killed towards the end, but he was also kind of sequestered in the gatehouse. And she was dressed as a maid, and like rich people never actually like make eye contact with the maid. So like it was kind of easy for her to kind of move about the house in that way with nobody really.
Yeah, there was a couple like little things in there that I really missed. Like, I really missed the pockmark thing. Apparently I really missed that frickin' the footman wasn't even one of the plague people. I thought that the whole time he was like working for them, and that was like kind of a red herring because
That was a
like
red
you
herring,
said, yeah, because like you said, and I totally missed that. I thought that he was like put there in order to try and like almost like a torture to torture the people there. And that didn't make sense to me until we just had this conversation. He was hired by Daniel. And even when you first said it, I was like, no, no. So, I mean, it's a really intricate, beautifully written novel. It's definitely, in my opinion, worth the read.
Oh, it was 100% worth the read. I would sit down and read it again, too. Because it is...
I would not read it again. Because...
Oh, really?
Here's the thing about doing book club the way that we do it. I have pored over this book so much more intensely than I would if I was just reading it off the fly, knowing we weren't going to be doing a podcast or something. So I feel like I've read this book 100 times, even though I've only read it once.
Well, I think like once you kind of know all the things in the end, these are the type of books, kind of like just like a movie too, where you like want to go back and kind of like pick up on all the little things once it's over. But like obviously not anytime soon, but like in the future, I would definitely pick it up and have like a kind of haunting. I just kind of wanted the end to be more
for people who love mystery. This is a great book. I could see some people DNFing it, and I understand why. You know, you really got to pay attention, or you're gonna. It's gonna slide. I would not, even though I did do a little in tandem reading with the book and with the audiobook when I started, and then I stopped and just started reading the book, because if you're listening to the audiobook, I do think you will miss some things, because you really have to pay attention. If you don't pay attention when you are reading this book, you are going to get lost and you're going to get frustrated.
Yeah, totally.
So I actually, even though I thought the audiobook narrator was good, I wouldn't recommend listening to this book. I would recommend, if you're going to read it with your eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be easier to track everything if you read it with your eyes. And then also, you know, like I said, there's a million characters, and sometimes you just need to use the reference at the beginning or the guide at the beginning.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that when you're listening to an audiobook. I mean,
yeah, no. I really wanted the ending to kind of be this or what I kind of thought that the direction it was kind of going, like that, like kind of middle afterlife purgatory thing. I thought that Aiden chose to go into Blackheath because he was in love with Evelyn. And she was like his love, and she was murdered. And now in this afterlife, he's like, I have to know. And kind of, remember that movie, What Dreams May Come?
Of course.
And he goes into his wife's personal hell to get her soul back because she's so lost. And she's kind of created this own hell for herself. And he goes in to basically get her out and to save her soul. That's kind of what I thought this was. And I would have liked that so much more.
It is not that.
It is not that. And because in the way that he even interacts with Anna, you know, it made me wonder, like, if that's how your soul works, like, you know, kind of like the way that you and I, like, when we met, like, we have no memories together, but like immediately our souls knew each other. Like, we were just like, I don't know how I know you, but I just, like, inside of me, I know you.
Well, it's just like an instant connection.
Yeah. And
kind of a thing. Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I wondered, like, between Aiden and Anna. He's like, I don't know why I'm so, like, I need to save her, or I need to save Evelyn. And so I kind of thought that was kind of playing into it too, because they couldn't remember their past lives together, but he knows that that's why he's there, to save one of them or both of them. I don't know, but it was not that. And so I did find that disappointing.
Yeah, a little bit.
I kind of liked that bigger picture.
What was your final rating? What's your rating? What do you rate it?
I feel like
group ratings.
All right, I feel like I went first last
Out of
time.
5 stars.
Out of 5 stars. I went first last time. You tell me your rating.
I'm gonna go 3 for me because yes, and the reason I'm gonna go 3 is because there's a lot of questions I'll never have answered. I thought the ending was a little bit anticlimactic. There was a lot of holes for me. So I'm gonna go 3. Even though I did enjoy this book and I do think it's beautifully written, I just don't think it's 5 stars for me. It's just not a 5-star read for me. And that is an opinion, and we all have them. And so I don't mind if people don't agree with me about any of that. But for me, if I was just like reading this on my own, I would definitely rate it 3 stars.
Okay.
And that's not bad. I consider 3 stars to be a decent read.
3 stars is a solid read.
Yeah, it's like for me, it's like mid. Like, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. That's 3 stars for me.
So when I started it and through most of the book, it was 5 stars at first. Like, the majority of the book, I was like, 5 stars, no notes, brilliant. And it was giving me everything I wanted from it. Like, it was checking all my boxes. It was refreshing. And it gripped me in a way that I have not been gripped by a book in a long time. So I was really refreshed by that. And it was very unique. One of the most unique books I've read. And while I figured out a lot of the things, there were some things that kept me guessing. So it was kind of satisfying on both of those fronts. I loved the writing style and the way he was able to convey the atmosphere of Blackheath. But then the ending did change that for me. And like all that complex buildup, and then the final reveal felt rushed. And the conclusion was open-ended, and it brought up, like you said, a lot of unanswered questions, which bothered me a lot. And I was hoping for... like, the sterility, too, of the ending just took away from the haunting, macabre kind of whimsy that we had for, like, most of the book. And then it's like, okay, well, you're free. All your possessions will return to you, versus something more more profound.
All the possessions you can't remember you had.
Right?
You get them back.
Like, it just, like, I felt like it just... and I also didn't know how I felt about the Anna redemption arc, if she was really that terrible,
or like what she even did,
right?
Like, I get she tortured the chick, but I mean, they just didn't talk about it. I was like, that's all we get here, really?
Yeah, I did think that it did raise interesting questions and discussions around morality and nature versus nurture, and like when your nurture and your memories are stripped away and you can make different choices without your past informing or influencing your present, what would you do? Like that, that concept is very interesting to me, which we do kind of get that. So overall, I did love it, and I really enjoyed reading it. 4 stars.
4 stars.
4 stars for me.
Group rating 3.5, rounded up, maybe?
I would say rounded up.
Rounded up? Yeah, 4 stars. Group rating
4 stars. It was a solid read. It was worth the read. The ending was a bit disappointing, but overall, really fun time. Since we've started, probably the one I've enjoyed reading the most since we've started the podcast.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
But I love all that, like kind of gothic, Britishy shit.
I think probably my favorite that we've done so far is Pestilence. Which...
we haven't even done it, though.
We haven't even...
People don't even know.
Done the guys, we've done the podcast for Pestilence, but that's for our subscription service that we haven't started yet. But we're doing the 4 Horsemen for that, and that was my favorite book we've done. And then, I really loved Fourth Wing.
Fourth Wing was fun.
Didn't love Iron Flame, but loved Fourth Wing. Do you have any quotes?
Oh, gosh. I
have one.
Okay, you do yours and I'll do mine, because it's more of a conversation, and this kind of throws back to Iron Flame a little bit.
Okay, my only quote is on page 120, and it says, "You've got the right idea. I got it into my head to go for a stroll, but when I came back, I couldn't get anybody to open the front door. I've been banging on windows for the last half hour, but there's not a servant to be seen. The whole thing's positively American."
I remember that one. The
so
drudgery.
American not to have servants.
The drudgery of America to not have people to open
I
the door.
I love the America shade in books. I always note it. I'm like, aha.
That's funny.
People hate us.
So mine would be, it's on page 351. We're in Rashton, and he is in love with Grace, and they're talking, and he says, she says, "Are you doing something dangerous, Jim?" she asked, and he says, "Yes." "Are you doing it for Charles?" "Partly." "Will you ever tell me about it?" "Yes, when I know what needs to be said." Standing on her tiptoes, she kisses me on the nose. "Then you better get going," she says, rubbing her lipstick off my skin. "I know what you're like when you got a bone to dig up, and you won't be happy till you have it." And I was like, that conversation could have solved like all of Iron Flame. Like, like, are you gonna go do something? Like, yeah. Is it dangerous? Like, yeah. Like, what?
Well, not just the whole conversation, but like,
will you tell me about it later? Like, yeah, absolutely. When I can tell you, I will.
But also the acceptance of it. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Like,
yeah, like
that
you go
would have
do,
just solved
like
all
you
the
go
problems.
do what you need to do, but like you're gonna tell me about it later, right? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. When I know what to say,
appropriate for me to do so.
And I'm like, boom, there. That's what healthy relationship communication looks like, right there. 1 stars.
1 star reviews.
He's a pedantic, pontificating, pretentious bastard, a belligerent old fart, a worthless, steaming pile of cow dung, figuratively speaking. God, you're mean.
You need a mother very, very badly.
Aaron says, imagine watching someone else play chess with himself. Imagine that he keeps patting himself on the back every time he makes a move, making his very nice top hat wobble and muttering, "Oh, ho, ho, you clever chap." Imagine you're intrigued because you like chess and because you think that maybe he'll have some inventive techniques. At the very least, he might be interesting to watch. But imagine that as you get closer, you realize there aren't any pieces on the board and that man is gazing vacant-eyed at nothing. There, now you don't need to read this book.
Man, that's mean.
I know. Eric says, I'm not entirely sure how a fiction book can feel like VCR instructions, but that's what this book felt like. Information coming at me, but no real intrigue.
Ooh.
Julie says, The 8 Lives of Julie listening to this book. Life 1.
I already love
Whoa,
it.
what is happening? Did I give myself LSD without knowing? Life 2. Oh, okay. Got it. We are moving in timelines and bodies. Settling in now. Life 3. Creepy, creepy characters. Won't sleep tonight. Life 4. Correct. Did not sleep. Now I'm drowsy. And this book is not improving the situ. Life 5. I should almost be done. Check time remaining. 7.5 hours. What? I've been listening for at least 23 hours. Move to ×2 listening. Life 6. I don't care. Don't give a crap. Just get it to the end, please. Interest lost. Moving to 3 times speed listening.
3 times with this book? Oh my god.
Life 7. Plot freaking twist-a-doodle. Cool. I can get behind this ending. Life 8. Because don't let the title fool you. If the bulk of this book weren't so tedious, slow, and complicated, my rating would be much higher because the premise and ending I thought were great. But 1 star. 1 star.
But 1 star.
Isabel Capetiers. Capetiers? I don't know how to say it. So boring. Hated it. The plot twist was...
I like Coppeteer.
The The plot twist was as interesting as my grandma's Scrabble game. Sarah said, I finished this book months ago, but just now adding a review just to make sure all my friends know how much this book annoyed me.
Ooh.
Mia Dorazio says, this book was too complex to finish. I could only read so much of it, then had to revert to Audible. I found myself disassociating even from that, therefore I did not finish. The idea of the storyline is interesting, but there are too many characters involved, too much detail, overall just too
many D's.
Yeah. Too much to try to consume. As a book, I don't recommend. As a movie, possibly.
Oh, I think it would make a good movie.
Or a limited series, at least.
Or, yeah.
That would be really good.
I think it would be fascinating to...
Anna Gale says, the 7.5 times I should have put down this book. Sorry, book club. And finally, we have Catherine Holyoke saying, make that 8.5 deaths. Evelyn killed me too. But rather than the adrenaline-laden high of a quick Thelma Louise, she tortured me for 458 pages while my pale blue lifeblood slowly ebbed out of my veins. I hope that on her deathbed should somehow reveal a redeeming quirk that would be worth at least a portion of the pain. Nope, I just flatlined.
Fabulous. I like that one.
Yeah. There we have it. The 7.5 deaths. That was really a fun time. I really, really had fun.
Okay, and can I just go ahead and throw in there that this title is so similar to the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo that the entire time that we have been scheduling and talking about this book, I have accidentally said Evelyn Hugo a million times.
Oh, yeah.
Because, of course, I read that first.
Did you know, fun fact, because this book was originally published in the UK, because I don't think Evelyn Hugo
You don't say. It's not positively American.
But the original title of this book is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, and the half was added to the American version because of 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
I wondered where the half came in. That is so random.
Yep, and purely coincidental title similarity, but they're like, oh, we have a book over here already kind of similar to that. Like, let's add something to the title to make it not quite
I mean, the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle and the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is very similar.
Very similar.
But the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle makes more sense.
Yeah,
because there is no half death. Well,
and it's interesting, too, that why they put that in the reading discussion group at the back. It was, it says, where does the half death enter in the narrative? But it isn't in there. Like, the title is literally just changed for the American version, so I don't get why that's in the reading group guide.
Yeah, I don't get it. Okay. Well, there you have it.
There you have it.
And what are we reading next month, Tiffany, for October?
What are we reading? Well, we put it out to you, Bookmates. We did polls online because we decided we wanted to do a Stephen King read. And so we did a poll to let you all decide what book we read. And you want to know what the people chose? You, the people.
I know.
You know.
I already know.
You, the people, have chosen Misery by Stephen King.
I'm really excited. I've read Misery when I was in my late teens, and I loved it then. And I've just recently finished it for the podcast. But Tiffany has never read Stephen King.
I have never read
really
Stephen King, which is actually really shocking because I really love like kind of darker reads. And
he's the goat of dark reads.
I know, and I just honestly don't know why I've never gotten around to it, but he's always just like been on my list, and it's time. It is time, and so I'm really excited to.
Have you cracked into it yet?
No, I could not read anything else along with Hardcastle because it was just
it
was too much.
That, yeah.
And Misery is a pretty short book, so I feel like I'm gonna plow through that one fairly quickly.
It's a nice quick read, and I mean it's just one of those reads that like keep you engaged and moves pretty quickly. Along with the fact that it is a smaller read.
Yeah.
Stephen King actually does a lot of like short stories too sometimes, and he's just great. So I'm really excited to chat about it, just mostly because you haven't read Stephen King.
I know, I'm really excited, and I feel like it's gonna like open that door, and then I'm just gonna like.
And just so everybody knows, I think Tiffany and I have already talked about this, but since you're not in our brains, I'll just go ahead and say it. I think we're planning on watching, when we're done reading it, I think we're planning on watching the movie individually so we can have kind of like a little bit of a movie discussion too, which is exciting. I believe it's Kathy Bates and James Caan.
Yep.
That play the characters, and they're both great. So I'm excited.
I have seen the movie, but it's been many, many years. So it'll be fun to kind of do like a book to movie discussion on top of.
And this is one of those rare times too where I think the book is just as good as the movie.
Oh, really?
Like it's so hard to do like a good balance there. But there's like the book is so much more intricate. There's so much detail in there that you just can't get on screen.
Right.
So it's just a feast. It's a feast for the eyes.
I
the
cannot
mind.
I cannot wait.
So very exciting, very exciting.
Well, do you want to tell the people where they can find us?
Absolutely. If you want to reach out to us, if you have any questions or comments or anything you want to say, just reach out to us at www.bookmatespodcast.com. You can reach us through there. Or
you can send us an email. You can send us an email at bookmatespcast@gmail.com if you have any hot takes about the current read, or if you want to shout out on the podcast. We always love to hear from everybody. And you can also find us on our fun stuff like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. You can also find visual versions of our episodes on YouTube that have fun little extras.
And if you really love us and you're obsessed and you want to support the show, you can go to www.bookmatespodcast.com and donate to our production. You can do as little as $5. You can do it monthly, you can do it one time, whatever you want to do. Or you don't have to do it at all,
But that is an option that you now have.
That is an option available to you. Please do it. At this point in time, we have one subscriber.
But I actually looked.
I don't know who it is.
Do you want to know?
I don't know.
I do.
You know who it is?
I know because
is it you?
It's me. I didn't even know because
you dork. You didn't even know that you subscribed to your own channel.
No, well, see, here's the problem: is that it was on Linktree, and we were like, we have a subscriber, and we thought that it was a financial subscriber, and I was like, what is this? And I found how you can download the subscriber list, and I was like, who is this person? And it had my email on it, and I was like, oh god damn it.
Okay, scratch that. We don't have any subscribers.
We don't have any subscribers.
Subscribe.
So we have a Linktree. You can find us on there, and that will link you to all of our other places. But if you want to...
And we are working on subscription content. We are working on building up Patreon content. We want to get ahead on those so that we can keep up easily, because we have lives and children to take care of, and we can't just stop and read and record a podcast every 2 seconds. Even though we're getting some built up, we're doing it.
We're making it happen. Anyway, love you, Bookmates. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next month. And
if you want to be miserable, read Misery, and we'll be back.
I love you.
I love you. I know it's time to leave. Goodbye.
Bye, best friend. I love you.
I love you.
Bye, Bookmates.
Bye, Bookmates.